that I've been out of the industry for 20 years, but I guess you're never out of the industry. I got in the industry because I had a lot of friends. I was friends with Frank DiFolita, great screenwriter, Sterling Sullivan, Carl Brendel, Frank DiFolita, Frank Capra Sr., Frank Capra II, and also Cesar Sorrentino from the Guild, who got me into SAG, got me working. And Carl Brendel decided he wanted to retire. And he put a hand on my shoulder and he says, "Robert, do you want to take my position?" He says, "You know everybody at Universal, so you'll be a good person to take my spot. And I'm not going to retire for a couple of years, maybe 4 or 5. So I got a good contract, a long-term contract with Universal.
Excuse me, let's, everybody, please make sure your phones are off.
My tether. And basically, Carl put me right next to his desk. And I started working with him as his first assistant, even though there were 4 other casting directors there. After the first day, because I kind of knew paperwork, he never said another thing to me. But within 6 months, I was handling 7 shows. I did the Start, the pilot of Murder, She Wrote in the first year, Airwolf the first year, lots of other shows. I was doing Whiz Kids, Knight Rider, you name it, I was doing shows. Everything from Universal. He retires about a year and a quarter later. And I wound up head of all the Walla ADR, the inserts, and all the extras at Universal. I had 5,000 extras and I had 6,000 actors at the time. And things were going pretty good. When hiatus showed up, we all were handed screenplays. We would read them and toss them. Studio would receive 50,000 screenplays a year at that time. I'm just talking about what the past is. I do not know what is going on right now, other than people like people, I just can't use their names, but they're saying that the movie business is dying because a lot of people aren't going to the movies anymore, the youngsters. So I don't believe that. I think there'll be another resurgence, and we'll find some way to evolve and start going back to the movies. But we would get 50,000 screenplays a year, out of which 14 or 15 would be assigned to a UPM and a first assistant director to go ahead and budget it and go ahead and put it together. And from there, we would make 4 or maybe 5 movies a year. The rest of the things we did were all television. We had to have a Quincy, we had to have this, we had to have that. So I wound up over my history. I did 51 movies, possibly more than that, because I did a lot of AFI films for women in films, because I liked doing it, even though I didn't have the time for it. I made time for it and did all those. I did 51 films. I counted them up yesterday. I was kind of shocked. 95 series and movies of the week, most of them that I finished. I did the first 2 years of In Living Color. You ever hear of that one? I did the last 2 years of Moonlighting, and I did everything in between. I did some great movies. And I also, one
Mr.
of my
Teitlebaum,
jobs,
you might need to speak up just a little bit.
I also was,
Yeah. Here it
I
goes.
didn't warm up today, I didn't do my exercise, I'm sorry. But I usually do, what to do today at a minute or two till 2. A thing distinctly hard to say, but harder still to do. For there will be a tattoo at 20 to 2, and a rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-2, and the dragon will come when he hears the drum. At a minute or 2 to 2 today, at a minute or 2 to 2. Is that okay?
Just a little louder.
A little louder.
A little louder.
I was assigned to, after Carl left, to be at all the production meetings at Universal. Anybody here work at Universal? Anybody at, okay. Every day after lunch at 1 o'clock, all the production managers would go and sit in a room. It was a big room. And I had a desk on a stage all by myself because we were kind of considered over there. And then the main production people were off to the right, and they would ask questions of each individual person. What do they need? What kind of cranes they're going to need? What kind of explosions and airplanes and everything else for Quincy? And then they would ask me, they say, okay, Teitlebaum, what do you got? I say, I want a time. I want a time release on your show, and I had to do this for 29 times, and they would always cringe. And I told them very straightforward, I need the time to be able to release times to the extras and the inserts and anything special, because of if you don't give it to me, you will not get the right person for the job. And my people go home at 7, and I'm not keeping them around to 10 o'clock and going over budget. I told them also that if they had to change a time, I would change the times myself. I didn't tell them that I had a 30 call sequencer, and I got news for you. In 1980, nobody had a 30 call sequencer except for Universal. We had 30 lines, and I would tell the people, you call back in first thing in the morning when you wake up, and you'll hear if your call time has been changed or if it's the same. Made it very simple for me because they were thinking I'd be up there at midnight making hundreds and hundreds of calls, which I wasn't. So that's what I did at the meetings. But the main thing was I loved the time that we had downtime. We were doing maybe 300 or 400 people a day instead of 3,000 to 4,000. And we would read scripts. And there's 50,000 scripts that came in. It just always felt to me that it was so much and so little being produced. And I realized that all the other companies were getting probably the same scripts, and we'd always keep our eyes out for anything else that may be something that we passed just to see what was going on. I left Universal when they started selling their departments. They sold the extra casting and the Walla and the other departments to Central for 250 grand. And I was a little upset about it because I told them that I would buy it and for that, but they didn't want to go for it. So I was by myself, and I'm in the elevator at the tower, and they gave me a full year's pay because I had a long-term contract. They gave me a year's pay. And I'm in the elevator with Doc Erickson. Doc said, I just heard what happened to you. He says, I'm going too. They got rid of my show. And he said, will you come with me? I got a new show that we're going to do. And can you do payroll? My wife was working with Frankie Cap. You know, if anybody know Frankie Cap, the great drummer?
Yeah.
Well, Frankie had a payroll company, and I asked him if he would do the payroll, and we would split it. And our first year together, we wound up doing so many pictures that we took in $13 million in payroll. So it started right there. And in 1986, we had a writer's strike, and also the extras went with it. There was a funny thing that happened, though. The head of the Extras Guild got filmed by NBC stealing typewriters. Now, the Extra Guild in 1930, it's the end of 38, early 39, was put together because they couldn't get extras for Gone with the Wind. And it was put together by Ben Siegel. Anybody know Ben Siegel? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. My father was his best friend. My father was a great attorney. but he was not his attorney. He was his friend and gave him the price. My father and Ben Siegel put that together. And the guild became a closed guild, and it was very useful for people in Chicago and New York when they needed somebody who was too hot. They could send them over to the Screen Extras Guild, and they could be extras. After all, they had beautiful wardrobes. They didn't need the $4 to $6 a day that they were getting paid. They had their own money. They were hiding in plain sight. And there was another 5,000 that was brought in just to be regular extras, and these guys would get all the good jobs. Simple as that. It was a closed guild. I didn't like it. I never liked it, and I saw an opportunity. The opportunity, I went over to Shapiro over at SAG, and I said, I'll give you the extras. I have 19,000 extras. Over 5,000 of them are SAG. I also have 6,000 SAG members in my company. I own LA Casting. And I'll give it to you. And they said, oh, no, we don't want the extras. They're not actors. Most of them were. And I proved this at Universal because they didn't like any of the extras from the Screen Actors Guild, and they asked me to hire only SAG members and pay them $125 a piece. So I did Legal Eagles with all SAG members. It worked. So I told them again, I said, listen, you've got to have this. They didn't want to hear it. So what I did is I went to the Teamsters, and I said, I can give you this extras, and they started jumping up and down. They said, if you give me 13% of the fiduciary, paid 50% of the fiduciary taxes, we'll take them. I said, you have to keep this very quiet. And I knew the Teamsters were very big-mouthed. In the Variety and the Reporter, it said the Teamsters are taking over the Screen Extras Guild. I get a call from Shapiro that day, and I went over and saw them, and I handed him all my documents and all my computers on all the extras they had. They went from 65,000 extras, actors that year, to over 103 or 104,000 just from my files. And they took over the Screen Extras Guild. The SAG is now under, all the extras are now under SAG. There were reporting numbers at a time, 125 on a movie before they could use a waiver, and 65 on television, which was very good for the SAG players who always wanted to do extra work and couldn't. And I'm very proud of that, to be able to have closed that guild. My father and Ben Siegel started it. I'm glad that I closed it. So that's what I have to say about that. Yabu Yablonsky, great guy, great producer, director. He wrote Victory. And he took Carol and I to the opening. And when it was all over and the curtain went down, he said, I wrote this. It wasn't, he didn't write it. Ford and Stallone did the writing on it. So it completely was different. Have some quick notes, and we'll get back into screenwriting right now. I'll tell you something. I'm at my office, and I get a call from Warner Brothers, and they wanted to know if I had time to have lunch with Mike Nichols. And I said, yeah, sure, why is this? Mike's never called me before. He said, well, Helen Mathis over at Central doesn't have the time to have lunch with him. Who here wouldn't have the time to have lunch with Mike Nichols? So I went over and sat down, and he told me exactly about his film, and we had lunch, got good lunch. Some people don't get a lunch. And he handed me a leather-bound script for Postcards from the Edge. And I loved that script, and I worked on it every day, and I spent a lot of time on the set. And it was a terrific movie, first one from him. By having lunch with him, I got Regarding Henry, And then I got, from his first ADs, Mike Henry, I wound up getting 4 other movies. So it's just amazing how somebody could have turned that down. And it was probably cost $7 or $8 million to Central. Some of the good movies that I did get also, I did La Bamba, I did Blood In, Blood Out, Hearts and Souls with Robert Downey Jr. Guilty by Suspicion was one of my favorite because I had to be on the set. It was Irwin Winkler's first direction, and they picked me because I was always picked for a look of a show. And this is what Alan Bloomquist told me. He says, we have Irwin, who is a film cutter, and what we're going to do is we're going to shoot during the day, and then Irwin's going to cut at night. And we have it scheduled for 62 days, and he'll be done in 45 or 50. So we're going to lose actors because of their envelope. They are not going to be able to get off their job to do our job. So I want you to hire the best actors that you know as extras. We want 2,400 of them over the period of this movie. And if we go shorter, just hire what you want, just fill the quota. And I hired good actors resembling and also that could give good lines without knocking over the flag and not causing trouble. I wound up bringing 22 upgrades from the SAG group to fill in for a lot of the actors that couldn't, the windows closed for them. It was hard work, but a beautiful film if you ever get a chance. It's called Guilty by Suspicion, Annette Bening's third movie. The first movie she did was Postcards, and the second was regarding Henry, and this was her third. Some do's and don'ts, please, when you're writing. Well, how much time do you spend writing? That's one of my questions. Do you spend an hour a day writing? Do you spend 2 hours a day, 5 hours? Are you like me? When I get up, I go directly to my computer and I start writing, and I stop to have breakfast at maybe sometimes 1 or 2. And then when I'm done, I call my wife and see what's going on, and then I go back and I'll write until she gets home. I like writing, and I know that I have to write if I want things to be seen. And I've done quite a number of screenplays, but I'll tell you who affected me the most. Dave Pelzer. Anybody know who Dave Pelzer is? He wrote a book called A Child Called It. It was the worst case of child abuse in California's history in '72. And Dave has, that book has 9 million copies in the United States alone. It's the most checked out book in high schools and in grammar schools still today. And this is so many years later. He wrote it in '72. 6, 7 years ago, he was working with us on one of our conferences. And I really liked what he did, and I liked all the books that he had written. And he asked me, he says, you were in the industry and you had a couple of screenplays that you did. I said, yeah. He said, would you help me with mine? I'm trying to write a screenplay for it. People have tried it before, but it never worked. I spent 5 months with him, and he got me writing books. Because I realized by writing a screenplay, you write a timeline. And if you have a screenplay that hasn't been sold, the easiest thing you can do is take that timeline and write a book. Because that way you can have some source of income from something that you said, oh, this didn't work and I'm never going to see it again and they're not going to do anything with it. Write a book. It gives you another opportunity for people to see it. It becomes a bestseller, you've got a better shot at getting it picked up.
The other thing is all the description we tell you to drop out, you put back in, right?
Right, and some of the things I always like to see in scripts. I see a lot of people writing director's notes. Please don't do that. You're not the director. If you have the money to you got 10 million, you can go to any serious producer and say, look, I got 10 million, you got 10 million, we got a $20 million picture and it's my script. And you possibly will get it made, unless it's completely distasteful to the person that you brought it to. So you have to be careful because there is so much work and so much talent just right here in this room. Do you write by yourself or do you write in groups of 5? Anybody write in groups? Oh boy. I love writing in groups because some days, you know, some days you don't have a thought. You get writer's block. Your invisible friends just don't want to talk to you. Some days Carol will give me one line and I'll do 7 or 8 pages because I needed that little spark. Or sometimes I just you can't get your head around it. You just sit there and you look at it. That's where magic comes. You have to be in that chair, you have to be writing, even if you're only journaling. Even if you're writing, I can't think of anything. Pretty soon, you will be thinking of something. You have to clear your mind. Silly games, acting games work. Go around your house and look at everything and give it a name. And when when you get frozen from that, you can't think of another name in the whole room, then sit down and you will write. It's, I know. Hemingway said that anytime he sat down at his typewriter that he didn't know if he was writing a suicide note or his next novel. And even if it is a suicide note, it also could be part of your book or your screenplay. But other things that maybe you shouldn't be doing is don't write big explosions or expensive things, helicopters, air forces, big armies. Write what you know. And your characters are so important, those first 10 pages that you write. You have to introduce and make people love what you're doing. Where do I get my characters from? Look, I'm only 72. I think. I'm 72. I've met some strange characters from all sorts of life. I've had many, besides being a casting director, I started off as a rare coin dealer. That's how I met a lot of people. Then I wound up producing with Doug Gilmore Records. And after that, I started doing some acting and voiceovers. After that, I became a casting director, and now I'm a writer full-time. The main thing what I have to do is I have to keep writing every day to make things do good. Excuse me, I need a sip. Maybe 2. Any questions so far?
The
Please.
50,000 scripts that Universal would get,
Yes.
were they all from agents?
No.
No.
The ones that weren't from agents get tossed into the white trash and sold by the pound.
So how many of the 50,000 would be from agents?
Well, we would read most of them anyway, because we were bored. But 15 would, anywhere from 12 to 17 would get attached a UPM and a first assistant director to see if it's feasible for the money, because a lot of the directors lost their ability to see the movie in their direction. After Heaven's Gate and for Fox, huge loss. Best 5.5-hour movie you could ever watch. But the 1.5-hour movie was trash. And then, of course, at Universal, we had Where the Buffalo Roam with Bill Murray. And he was still at a time where he would mug the camera. And he took a $15 million script and made it into a $70 million script. And that's when the studios decided enough is enough. They're going to take the artistic directorship away from the directors. The director could do this, but they had to be within these boundaries that are shut off by money, by the accountants who know nothing about what we do, or the new attorney who is at the head of the companies now. And I can tell you this, that there's big rumors right now that Paramount is being sold to the Chinese. And then Paramount goes, it goes with Viacom, it goes with Universal. Things are not good in that way. That's why I mentioned the first part of it, about the millennials don't want to go to the movies. My God, when I was a kid, Saturday at the movies, you see three serials, 5 cartoons, and 2 movies. And kids would sit there all afternoon. Was it the parents taking them there so they could have alone time? More than likely. But at least it became standard. We got to see an awful lot of great movies with great directors and great actors. Who's our great actors today? That's another thing that bothers me. I like to see great actors, and you know it when you see it. You know, it's, I don't want to get on a rant about that. Who's your hero when you're writing? Where did you get your hero from? Was it from sense memory like I do? I knew a guy named Joe Lipschitz. He became partners with Cullen the Barbarian, who was a tailor on 51st Street. You know, I mean, it just depends on how you gotta like who you're writing about. And the people that you don't like, you shouldn't like them, but you shouldn't hate them either, because they have to have something that everybody will like about them, and it helps when they get killed. Wranglers. I watched Red River. Script had 10,000 cows. 10,000 cows today takes 1,000 wranglers. One wrangler for 10 cows. How can you make a movie like that in budget? Impossible. So you just have to be reasonable about what you're writing. I'm not telling you to write little scripts. I'm telling you to write a script that is smart and intelligent to you. Writers, we tend to love our stuff too much. That's why I like writing with other people. Because it's not, you know, like Yabo said, he wrote Victory. And on screen, nothing that he wrote, the storyline was there, but nothing else was there, and he was so disappointed. And Yabo was the guy that made Vlad the Impaler palatable to the American audience. And he started drinking because of it, because for 3 years he couldn't write a note, couldn't write a letter, couldn't hit the A button. So he drank a lot. But he finally made him palatable, made Vlad the Impaler a snappy dresser. Producers liked it. Crazy. And again, never send a script, please.
Well, I was just wondering if you'd mind talking a little more about this writing in groups of 5. I mean,
Or it can be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
right, but are these people that go way back with you? Are these new people? Do you meet once a week? Do you just call each other on the phone for ideas? How does it work? Because I know the answer is probably lots of different ways, but I'm curious.
We have 18 people in this room. I can see 9 groups right now that could be sitting down together and writing. And absolutely, because we can't have everything or all the ideas. You write a book and it gets picked up by the studios, the option, and give you a 5-year option. Whoopee. We're gonna give you $1,000 the first year, and maybe after the 5th year you could get $100 grand or something like that. But I don't want to wait until I'm 78 to get money. I want to do whatever I do now. So I think it's best to share your work with somebody that you can trust, somebody that you know, somebody in your group, and sit down and say, okay, I know nobody's nobody, well, somebody here will be as aggressive as writing as I am. I'm going to write a lot during the day when I can write, and some days I can't write a word. So I go for walks, or I'll go to Starbucks. Yes, please.
I have a writer's critique group. There are 4 of us. And I actually find that it's a great motivator because I'm embarrassed to show up if I haven't done anything.
You should be writing with them, please.
Can I be in your group?
I write during the day and my wife edits at night. I have a perfect thing. I have written with up to 7, 8 people. I like writing. I did Clarksdale with 7 people, with Doug Gilmore and quite other people. It was came out of
A lot of Skype.
yeah,
FaceTime,
Skyping. Yeah, I did so much Skyping
Yeah.
that it was ridiculous. And you know, you have whole people working with you on a silly script, 1913 to 1927, the music, and it all came out of Ground Zero, which is Morgan Freeman's his club that he has in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and he owns the script. And the script is now being rewritten from what we wrote, and it's being rewritten. I've been begging to get it back because when you have 7 or 8 writers, everybody has to have their own hero. And it was, I said, we're not going to get this, and we need a serious rewrite, and they turned it in, and Morgan has a producer and a director on it now, so we'll see. Please.
You know, we facilitated that on the Desert Screenwriters Guild page, that they can have their scripts posted. We've got some people who have scripts posted and nobody bothers to even look and assist. We then created a private where you can like invite people to come, and then you share your password, and then that group gets together and they look at the thing. No takers.
Well, because people are worried that someone's going to steal their work. And once you go ahead and register it with the WGA, and you copyright it, and you trademark it, and do all this other things that you're supposed to do. You don't always have to trademark it, because I'm writing a book right now. In fact, I finished, it's about my mom. It's called Hiding in Plain Sight. And it'll be out next month. It's a personal window into organized crime from 1920 through 1950s, and she is the real protagonist. It's a great book, and I have it backed up by the Foley, but still, you know, it's still a shot. I do have a studio interested in it, already offered me to do the book. What my agent did is got me to write the screenplay. It took me 1.5 years to finish the screenplay, and they said, okay, we want to option the book. I just said, you know what I said. Took me about 8 months with Carol to finish this, because Carol and I listened to all these stories from my parents. My father and mother were Al Capone's attorneys. Mm-hmm. And not only his, but his brother, his mother, and everybody else. And also 14 other top members of the Chicago outfit. They kept everybody out of jail while they were their attorneys, except for Capone, and they were not his tax attorneys. My mama always did say that if she was his tax attorney, he would never have gone to jail. And I kind of believe that she was right. Mm-hmm. Because she was the great research attorney. She also, in her second case out of John Marshall Law School, in her own firm, it was called Melnick, and Teitlebaum. She was a Melnick at that time. She went to the Supreme Court, and she got us the start of our bankruptcy laws. It was called the Chicago Land and Trust case. And I have an actual picture of the documents that I'm putting in the book too. Just shows that how brave my mama was to become a lawyer in 1927, to go to law school in 23, when women didn't have that opportunity. When they got out of law school and they were lawyers, they wound up being secretaries for other lawyers. And my mama was never put up for that. But she also made an awful lot of mistakes. And she grieved for them. And she died when she was 90. She had worked until she was 89. So that's my mama's story. But, yes?
How can you get a consistent voice in a screenplay when you've got 5 or 6 people writing it?
What you do is you write together and you talk it over, especially. It's communication with the people that you know and you trust. If you don't trust somebody, you can't write with them. I got stuck with situations like that, and they ruined a thing that we did during the hiatus of 87, and it was called Jester's Jury. It was perfect. It was going all the way, but things were put into the script that I didn't want, my partner Michael Hite didn't want, and this other guy who had the connections with Eddie Malkovich, who we did also. But he was a better friend, and he was over at HBO, and they were going for it, and all of a sudden the writer's strike was over, and next thing you know, it's shelved. So that happens. But you gotta trust who you're with in writing. You gotta have good friends that you can write with. Because if you're not good friends, you're gonna write crap. And crap sells, though. I'll tell you, the best screenplay I ever saw for a television show while I was at Universal was called Otherworld. And it was so good, I wanted to cast it. And Carl says, no, I'm doing this one. Okay, Carl? He was the boss at the time before I was boss, because if I was a boss, I would have done it. It looked so good. How could it miss? They did the pilot, and Universal said, we're not putting this on there. This is the worst piece of crap we ever saw. And it shelved and never done again, but it was called Otherworld. And it was by one of their writers that they were paying. And I got news for you, it was such a good script. And directors can ruin them. So that's any other questions on them? Got good questions here. Did you have one more?
Well, no, I was just saying, like, how do we get people to participate in
Well,
working together?
Don't they have to really bring something to the table, though? Because I started working about a year ago with a couple of members here on a script, and we met about 4 or 5 times, and I had the idea of what I wanted, and when they would contribute, they'd just take it to another area, and, you know...
They said no to a line.
No, to the area, to the idea that I wanted to go with. You got to stay in the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You won't become a star.
I was getting too comfortable for you.
But and I didn't really want to get into it with him, because after the second meeting, I said, "This is not working out, but I'll try it." And you know, I mean, if I was sitting with you or Janelle or Mr. Plone here. They bring something to the table, but people that I didn't really know and they were off on a different arc, so it turned out that we just quit writing together, and that was a waste of time.
It was a waste of time. I come from a group. I am the director of Palm Springs Theater Sports, but I haven't been participating in lately because there are a lot of other improvers here, even though I have the whole Coachella Valley for improv from Keith Johnstone. Keith Johnstone was the writer of the London Theater for the Queen. And because of the censor, he moved to Calgary, and there's 96 theater sports teams around the world. You gotta know when to say no. Because if it's not going in the right direction, you have to put your foot down and explain yourself why. It's not that you were so in love with your protagonist or even a minor character. They have to have a direction, and they have to say something important. Not all the time. It could be chit-chat. But you don't have to write, and then he took a glass of water. It stops the flow of your screenplay. get rid of all that crap. But but the good thing is that when you find somebody that you can trust, now I would write with you any day because I know what you've done. So that would be a good pick. I would write with anybody here. But if it didn't work, I'd be the first one to tell you. It doesn't work. In theater sports, it's a 5 minutes improv. And this is what Keith told me. He says, if you do something wonderful in workshop, never do it again, because then it wouldn't be improv. If you do it again, might as well just write it like the Groundlings in Second City, who Keith Johnstone and Viola Spolin put together. Then you're doing skit-prov. So you do it over and over and over again until you have something that people will laugh at. If you're doing funny stuff, yeah. But another thing is always say yes in improv, because of if someone says, well, oh, there's a moose in the room, the guy says, no, it's not, it's a squirrel. That's the end of the scene. No one's gonna listen to it after that. Because if you say yes, you move forward in that. But that's improv, that's not screenwriting. Yes, please.
How do you deal with, let's say, the project's actually picked up and maybe moves towards getting a production deal? How do you deal with the rights that everyone's involved in? Because I'm currently dealing with that.
It depends if you are the first writer. First writer is more than likely going to get 3.5% of the budget.
Right.
The other writers are being paid. Some
Hired guns.
good writers are getting $5,000 a week at the studios. Some get 10, some get 25. Depends upon what they've done. I was lucky to be in the room.
Sure. Well, talking about writing as a group, that's always been my concern of, everybody is always looking out for themselves, even though they want to contribute.
The group that worked with Sid Caesar, that was a perfect group.
Sure.
And they blew hundreds of ideas, but it was Sid who wrote them down. So you have to have somebody who has to have the total edit, the total control of what you do. Or if you're in that spot, you have to be wise. Just because you like something, you can't let them ruin your script. I learned that on Clarksdale. And I offered to rewrite that for nothing. And I still have it because I'm waiting for them to call me back. Please.
From my own experience, let me just give one rule about
Please.
writing with groups and people. Only work with people who will serve the script and not serve their ego.
Exactly. All egos at the door. I believe that. But some people are very overpowering, and you put them in a seat where they can still talk. Because somewhere along the line, they may have something brilliant for your script, and then you use it. But you can't do that with everybody.
Yeah,
I like writing, now I like writing just with one other person, sometimes two. I find that when you walk into a room and there are 5 people and there's the head writer, and he already has a preconceived idea, and he hands you 8 pages, and he says, okay, here's this is how it's going to go. And we have to, if you're getting paid a lot of money for it, you're going to sit there and take it. But it doesn't mean it's going to be a good script. You should know. Have you finished scripts and
Many, yeah. And I've worked in writers' rooms, so what you were saying about being handed the script, it's still important when you're handed a script from the head writer to put aside your own ego.
Exactly.
And say you work for the script. You work for if you don't like the way the script is, try to make it better. But it's because you need to make the script better, not because you want to be the star.
Right.
Exactly. Because if you're in a group, even if you put most of that script together, and you're the fifth person on the script, you still know what you did. And you gotta be proud of what your work is, because it's a proud job. It's a good thing. And like I said before, if your script doesn't make it, you have the best timeline to write a book.
Yeah, and personally, the person who mostly has the ego in a room like that with me is me, so I have to look at it. He's not having it.
Listen, you have to have an ego to even be in this business.
Yeah.
You know, you wanna see your name up in the lights, and you don't wanna change your name to Exit. So, no, I appreciate that, because it's hard work. It is hard work.
Yes.
Writing, what is really hard work is writing comedy.
Which I can't do.
We can't do everything.
He's a good comic writer.
Yeah. And he's doing some real good stuff. I really appreciate that. Any other questions? I can go on.
I was just gonna say that you said, get up in the morning, sit down at your desk and start writing. My problem is trying to stay away from the refrigerator.
I get out of bed and I go directly to the computer, and before I have lunch, I go to the shower. I do it because it's a regimen that I have built that works for me. If I get up, take a shower, have breakfast, then I'm full. And I sit down and my invisible friends don't want to talk to me. So I find when I'm hungry and I have a thought that I can expand on, that's when I'm at my best. And like I said, I'm stuff that, well, you have to have some kind of a regimen, and I do appreciate it. And I hope that you will appreciate that too. And I hope you appreciate or listen to some of the stuff, if only a little bit of what I've said sinks in, then it'll be good. That if I can help one of you, or all of you, it would be my honor. And I'm easy to find because my number is in the phone book. I've always felt that people, if they wanted to find me, they pick up the phone book and they'll find me. And I also have it on my card. Anybody wants a card, I can give it to you.
Sure. What's a phone bill?
Huh?
What's a phone bill?
So let's play a game. Anybody want to play a game?
Yes.
You don't have to do anything and sit there. Everybody have a little bit of paper or something to write on?
We've got papers someplace, we've got papers.
I have
on that.
papers here in case anybody wants them. And I'm going to play a game that was given to me by Patricia Ryan at Stanford.
Can this paper be in a notebook, or is it
It
going
could
to
be
be
anywhere you
travel
want.
freely around the